There are over 200 creatures in the world of ARK. Many have great utility, versatility, or just plain suck. In this video, I'll be showcasing the best 20 battle mounts in ARK Survival Ascended and Evolved. I will not be including any paid DLC creatures, so in no particular order, let's get straight into it. Kicking off our list is going to be the Spinosaurus, which I did almost leave off the list due to it losing to one of its stronger rivals in most departments, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. It is, however, very versatile in its travelling capabilities, much more agile and manoeuvrable than the Rex, and does have a decent swimming speed also. Capable of travelling in either bipedal or quadrupedal stance, a very fast sprinter in quadruped with a faster bite attack speed, and when in biped has a tighter turning radius, able to turn 360 degrees on the spot, able to dish out a slower but heavier attack with its sharp claws, aka the slap attack. It does receive the hydrated buff when touching or submerged in water, increasing its attack damage by 15%, movement speed by 20%, and health regeneration by 25%, which will last for 30 seconds after leaving the water. It does, however, compete as an apex predator on the Aberration map, due to the Rex missing from the food chain. Up next we have the Dire Bear. A personal favourite of mine, the Dire Bear is a powerful omnivore that when reaching its full sprinting potential is one of the fastest land mounts in the game, with decent health, stamina and weight stats, and a high damage melee attack, a bite and claw attack which rivals the damage of even a T-Rex. Adding to this, the rider can also wield their weapons when mounted. The Dire Bear can do almost anything and everything, capable of harvesting meat, hide, etc. from carcasses, and berries, etc. from bushes. Its harvesting capabilities do not end there, where with its alternate attack can harvest honey from wild beehives for 15 honey a time, which is 3 times the amount a player can harvest it for, and without zero aggro from the bees. This has a 15-minute cooldown where you can come back later and do it all over again. When playing the Aberration map, the Aberrant Dire Bear is ridiculously useful for harvesting bucket loads of organic polymer from the bushes, which you can find at the edge of the blue zone and in the red zone. Riding or standing next to a Dire Bear will also offer the player a small 35 hypo and hypothermic protection. The Mighty Reaper is no doubt the most feared on Aberration, and for good reason. With strong stats across the board, boasting a massive health pool and high damage in attacks, there isn't many that can rival the Reaper's power. Capable of jumping great distances with its charge jump, with a number of strong attacks at its disposal, a powerful bite attack, a tail spin attack causing massive knockback to even the largest of threats, and also a ranged attack where it will shoot acid projectiles from its tail. Any targets hit with this acid will be slowed, any flyers hit will be grounded and unable to fly for 10 seconds. They do have their own natural armor protection, which reduces all incoming damage by 80%, however will be negated by any source of charge light in range. I am probably the only person in the world that dislikes the Rhinianafa. I'm sure if it was a cool looking dinosaur then I'd probably like it a whole lot more. However, I cannot deny how versatile this big ugly bug is. Able to traverse land, air and surprisingly sea, a fast and agile flyer that can land and skate across the ocean like it's an ice rink, where it can even dive down into the water below where it boasts a pretty fast swimming speed. One thing to note is that it does have an oxygen stat, so be sure to keep that in mind when taking a cheeky bath. It has a scream ability similar to the Utyrannus, where it can temporarily scare creatures up to the size of a T-Rex, equipped with a 2-seater saddle, 1 rider and 1 passenger. Both players can wield their weapons when mounted, depending on the game mode you are playing. On official PvP servers, the rider cannot do this. However, you will be able to when latched onto a surface. As a battle mount, it has strong stats across the board, a large health pool, and packs a punch with its melee attack. Once placing sap in its inventory, it will convert it to resin over time, which is a key ingredient it requires to use its abilities and ranged attacks. One being its resin armor, which will reduce any incoming damage by 40% and will consume 1 resin every minute. It has 3 ranged attacks, the needle which fires like a machine gun costing 1 resin per needle and dealing 75 damage per hit, the rocket which can be fired manually or as a homing rocket onto the target, dealing 100 damage per hit and costing 3 resin per shot and will also inflict the resin debuff, and finally the bomb, dealing 300 damage if the target steps into the goo. It will gain the resin coverage debuff, which basically slows and temporarily freezes the target in place when the bar is full. This will cost 5 resin per shot. It can carry many larger creatures than what the Quetzal can carry, and can also carry varieties of different structures around your base, including vaults full of gear, where the weight of the vault is totally ignored by the Rhinianafa. This will cost 1 resin every 30 seconds when picking up structures. The Megalodon, in my opinion, is still a very underrated battle mount. It may be weaker than the Surfactinus, but it's pretty lineable between the two, plus I have a personal amount of hate toward the Surfactinus. It really does have a face that only a mother could love, but we won't go there. I do believe there's more advantages in taming the Megalodon, but of course this is just my own opinion. They have strong stats across the board, however it's not as a solo battle mount that makes them shine, but having access to strong pack buffs, and the ability to deal bleed damage with their bite. It has one of the strongest pack buff ratings in the game, which will go up to +8 in a group of 9 or more Megalodons, where they will receive roughly 28% melee damage and 8.5% damage resistance per extra pack member. On top of this, having one of the strongest bleeds in the game, which will drain 5% of the target's total health over 5 seconds, allowing them to kill tanky and dangerous threats with ease. The Megalodon was the main contributing factor in me beating the massively overspawned underwater cave from the island, with 0 casualties. There's nothing better than a bit of meg on meg action. They can also be equipped with a tech saddle, which is also going to give it an edge over its rivals. Next up is the new dinosaur, which was recently added to the main official roster of creatures in ARK Survival Ascended, and is only available in Evolved as a modded creature. This thing is an absolute beast, a great semi-aquatic mount for almost any occasion, as it does not possess an oxygen stat. Although it is much larger than its Sarco cousins, it is far more agile at the cost of a slightly slower sprint and swim speed. It has a number of deadly attacks at its disposal, including a hefty base directional bite attack, a tail swipe attack that deals slightly more damage than the basic bite, and some pretty decent knockback. Yeet! And its deadliest attack, the Gigabyte, which can be charged up and at full charge will clamp down on its enemies, dealing massive damage. If charged to 100%, will also inflict the fractured debuff to the target, which is kind of like a bleed effect, but kind of not. However, it will drain the target's health over time, but only when they move, which I guess is most likely the case because you wouldn't want to stand there in place after receiving a Gigabyte to the face. This attack can also be used underwater, which is awesome, and the rider can also wield their weapons when mounted, which definitely looks a little uncomfortable for the rider. It does also take 50% less damage to its head, which is interesting, and also has a variety of other damage reductions for different weapons when hit in the body, which I personally had no idea about, so the ARK wiki page came through on that one. Whoever does test these things is an absolute champion, I'll give them that. Moving back to the land, we have the powerhouse that is the Megatherium, a great tame for its utility and fighting capabilities. As an omnivore, they excel at gathering meat, hide, chitin, berries, fiber, silk, cactus sap, and many more collectibles. With a decent weight stat, high health pool, and decent damage. That is until they come into contact with insects, where that decent damage is massively amplified, as they will deal 50% more damage to insects in general, and once they kill an insect, they will receive the insect killer buff, which will last for 120 seconds, increasing their melee damage by 250% and damage resistance by 75%, which does stack with the extra damage they will deal to insects, giving them a total of 375% damage increase when fighting bugs, which makes the Megatherium one of the best assets when fighting the Broodmother boss, as she will summon spider minions, which allows the Megatherium to reach its full potential of being a deadly killing machine. The Tyrannosaurus Rex is one that cannot be left off this list. Its high health pool and high damage is almost unrivaled by any creature of its size. It is pound for pound one of the best boss fighters in the game. The Rex is also one of the few creatures that has access to a tech saddle, once again giving it an edge over its rivals. Speaking of unrivaled creatures of its size, the aberrant Megalosaurus deserves a spot on this list. This is of course based from the perspective of using them on the aberration map, as the standard variant is a nocturnal predator. This is not the case with the aberrant variant when playing aberration. With the T-Rex missing from the food chain, the aberrant Megalosaurus rises to the top, becoming an apex predator, where it will never feel the need to sleep again. Having strong stats across the board with an extremely strong bite attack, a secondary grab that can be used to pick up smaller creatures in its mouth, taking them to a desired location or crunching down on its prey. It is fully immune to radiation, and in my opinion is the best mount to open the door to red zone exploration. There is not much deadlier than a group of mate boosted Megalosaurus. Adding to this, in ARK Survival Ascended, non-ridden Megalosaurus now actually use their primary attack. This massively increases their non-ridden viability when playing ARK Survival Ascended. The Basilosaurus has been and most likely will always be my favourite aquatic creature. It will keep the rider safe from harm from almost any threat. Exploring the icy oceans? No problem. The Basilosaurus grants the rider a whopping 562 hypo and hypothermic protection. You can probably ride your Bazzy butt naked and it will still keep the frostbite away. It is fully immune to the jellyfish stun and dismount, the Electrophorus shock attack, and the Two-Fist grapple attack. But of course this is a list of the best battle mounts, and these perks only contribute contribute to it being a stronger one at that, with a huge health pool and decent base damage, able to easily take on the deadliest threats that the ocean has to offer. The Basilosaurus is my go-to mount for running through the underwater caves, having my pack of Megalodons at my side to deal the big boy damage, with my Basi provided support keeping me and them safe. Adding to this, it can also regenerate its health extremely quickly when at the ocean surface. The only downside of the Basilosaurus is that they slowly take health damage when below a certain depth, but this is minimal considering how much health they have. The rock drake is quite possibly one of the most popular creatures in the entire game. At least for me, once I finally get to the stage of owning a rock drake, I almost never travel the map on anything else ever again. Able to cling and climb up vertical surfaces or ceilings at any angle, dash into any surface and gliding through the air like you just don't care, latching onto almost any surface as you please. There's nothing that beats the feeling of riding a rock drake. Great for land, sea and air combat. As it isn't classed as a flyer, it doesn't get dismounted when touching the water and has a very quick swimming speed. But of course it is on the list because it makes for an exceptional battle mount. With a high damage bite attack and strong stats, it has a saddle with 2 seats where both the rider and passenger can use their weapons when mounted, and at the cost of its own stamina can use its cloak ability, rendering it invisible to any wildlife if not already aggressed upon. All these abilities combined makes the rock drake a valuable asset when fighting the Rockwell boss. Plus, if you do defeat Rockwell on what I believe is beta difficulty and above, you'll be able to unlock the tech rock drake saddle, which will no doubt make it even more of a deadlier battle mount. Wyverns have been a fan favourite creature ever since the release of Scorched Earth, and are most definitely the lords of the skies in ARK Survival Ascended, with many different wyvern variants to choose from, added to ARK Survival Evolved over time with new maps. I'll focus on the 3 originals from Scorched Earth, which are available in both Ascended and Evolved: the Poison, Fire and Lightning. Soaring through the sky quicker than any flyer in the game, minus the new Dreadmare, but that is paid DLC, so it's lucky to even get a mention from me. With all 3 wyverns boasting their own unique elemental attacks, setting alight anything you please with the Fire Wyvern's Breath attack, which will drain a percentage of the target's maximum health, firing Poison Ball homing like rockets with the Poison Wyvern, or creating your own Electric Storm with the Lightning Wyvern's devastating Shocking Beam, with all 3 dealing a lot of damage respectively. Their Bite attack also deals a hefty base damage. The Wyvern is useful for almost anything and everything, able to pick up larger creatures than the Argentavis, but not quite as large as the Quetzal, gathering wood, thatch and cactus sap with its wing flap, which will also cause massive knockback to wild, tamed and human targets, yeeting them into oblivion. The Wyvern was no doubt the coolest addition to Scorched Earth. Up next is the Griffin, one of my favourite flyers in the game. The Griffin is currently only available in ARK Survival Evolved and will come to Ascended with the Ragnarok release, which is slated to be in March next year. So we'll see how many months that gets delayed by. Anyway, the Griffin is known for its fast speed and agility as a flyer, with a decent flying speed, however will become far quicker than most when diving, dipping and diving through the sky, able to outrun almost anything with ease. It doesn't have any armor protection, which is the only downside to it, but its health can be leveled for a decent amount. Its basic bite attack doesn't really deal a lot of damage, however it does have 2 powerful aerial attacks at its disposal. It can dive straight down and dive bomb the ground for 3 times its melee damage, but its deadliest attack is when you press the attack button during its dive and swoop, which when at full acceleration can deal up to 10 to 15 times its base melee damage. And if you are experienced enough with it, you can even hit the target for 2 or 3 times during the dive, which will inflict a lot of damage. The Griffin does also have a passenger seat where both the rider and passenger can wield their weapons when mounted. I honestly cannot wait to see the Griffin officially come to ARK Survival Ascended. The Carcharodontosaurus is one of the largest and potentially the most dangerous carnivores in the game. Similar to the Giga, however I do believe it is far superior to it, which is why the Giga was left off the list. It has a massive health pool and very high base damage, but it comes into its own with its passive buffs. Firstly, it does have a passive known as Shredded. With every bite the Carcha lands, will reduce any healing the victim receives from any source. It will also receive the passive Killing Frenzy, which occurs whenever the Carcha lands a fatal blow on targets. The effect will last for 10 seconds and will increase the movement speed and grant it immunity to any stun attacks. Blood Rage is by far its strongest ability, which will increase its healing rate and melee damage by 1.75% per stack. The counter is visible at the bottom of the screen, with every kill increasing its Blood Rage counter, and at 100 full stacks will boost its healing rate and damage by 175%, making them one of, if not the deadliest killing machine in the entire game. And if you wanted to, you could also throw away all this excessive massive power by roaring, which will give all nearby allied creatures the incited buff, which will give them a temporary movement speed bonus. Surprisingly, even though it is a very large dinosaur, it can still fit into the tech cave on the island map, which is something the Giga of comparable size cannot do. This will definitely aid you in beating this cave. The Argentavis is not typically known as a battle mount, but more for its wide versatility in utility. Every time I begin a new playthrough on a map, I always begin with a goal of taming one of these bad boys, because once I own one, I feel like the game is already over. So let's quickly dive into their abilities. They have great stats as a whole, high weight, stamina, and decent health and damage output. Its saddle can be used as a portable smithy to craft and repair items on the go, plus has weight reduction for a wide variety of heavy resources, allowing you to craft those expensive blueprints that you can never craft in the smithy. As a battle mount, it does have a few tricks up its sleeve. When walking, its melee attack causes pretty decent knockback, so it's able to take out threats without a scratch. Hovering above and circling larger threats around their butt will make it much more difficult for that creature to hit your RG. And finally, if you do take too much damage, your Argentavis can heal very quickly when biting or consuming a carcass. This gives it the rapid regeneration buff, which will boost health regeneration and stamina regeneration for the duration of 20 seconds, making them great for prolonged battles. Most players do tend to use the Argentavis for their traveling capabilities, able to pick up small to medium creatures in its talons, which paired with the Doedicurus and Ankylosaurus make for the perfect farming team, and can also carry small creatures in its beak, which for example makes taming the otter extremely easy, as it will keep the otter in its mouth even after landing. The Argentavis will forever be known as one of the most versatile and useful creatures in the game. The Therizinosaurus is up next, another very popular creature that can almost do anything and everything. Equipped with 3 attacks, a bite attack great for gathering berries, hide, chitin and many more. Its primary power attack, aka the slap attack, great for gathering wood, raw meat and many more. And its delicate attack, aka the tickle attack. This attack is exceptional for harvesting fiber, rare flowers and other unique collectibles. That's right, the Ferry can do it all. They are also equipped with their own harvesting levels, which can be accessed via their radial menu. With every level they gain, they also gain a harvesting level. You can put these into either power or delicate harvesting, which will boost its gathering efficiency in which field you choose to level. But of course, once again, it doesn't just excel as a farming machine, but as a very powerful battle mount. With a high health pool and high damage output, rivaling the stats of a T-Rex. But being as it is a herbivore, it has access to the healing effect of sweet veggie cakes, which makes the Therizino a popular pick in being a formidable boss fighter in most arenas. Up next, we have another personal favourite of mine, which is the Baryonyx, another extremely versatile semi-aquatic mount. Not the strongest battle mount by any means, however it does have a lot of utility and advantages going its way, making it a go-to pick for many survivors. With its speed, agility, ability to jump, and with having a very slim build, makes it a popular pick for running many caves, as it can fit into almost any cave on the island, without needing cryopods. The rider can wield their weapons when mounted, allowing them to take out threats from afar. The Baryonyx is also the perfect land mount in opening the door to ocean exploration, as it does not possess an oxygen stat. They are equipped with a deadly tailspin attack that can only be used in water. This attack can temporarily stun a wide variety of small to medium creatures or players, making the Baryonyx a very dangerous threat in the water. It heals very quickly when force-fed fish meat, and can also heal large chunks of its health when killing fish, allowing it to get right back on into the fight. Another great mount around the similar size to the Baryonyx is the Thylacoleo, which is also one of the most popular battle mount picks for many survivors, having strong stats across the board with great traversal capabilities, with the ability to jump great distances, able to cling to and scale vertical surfaces, and when latched onto, can pounce and ambush a variety of small to medium creatures. As it is a smaller carnivore, it can fit into the majority of cave entrances, not as many as the Baryonyx, but it will still make for a perfect mount for many caves, where the rider can also wield their weapons when mounted. And even though they are a relatively small to medium-sized predator, they are not to be underestimated. It is not their stats that make them shine, but the ability to quickly bleed out their target's health, sharing the same bleed to that of the Megalodon, draining 5% of the target's health over 5 seconds, allowing it to easily take down far larger threats than itself. These bleed attacks cannot be negated by saddle armor. The Thylacoleo is the ultimate portrayal of David vs Goliath, where any giant that isn't a boss will be no match for the Thyla. Up next is going to be none other than the Shadow Mane, which is currently only available in ARK Survival Evolved and will come to Ascended when the Genesis Part 2 map releases, which will probably be when I'll be old and my hair has gone grey. The Shadow Mane is a prominent battle mount, being a very strong all-rounder when it comes to stats, decent health and decent damage output. However, it does also have a charge bar for consecutive strikes, which once at full can perform the finishing strike, which will deal 4 times its melee damage, and if the target dies it will fully replenish the bar. They have their own natural natural armor rating and also reflective armor defensive protection, known as full mail poison, which will apply a debuff to any attackers that land a hit on it for 7 seconds, and will stack up to 5 times, slowly damaging the victim over time and decreasing the damage of their attacks, which does also work against bosses. They also gain the hydrated status effect, which is the same buff the Spino gains when touching water. The males and females have their own unique pack buffs. When mate boosted, the male can roar, which will boost all nearby allied creatures and players for 30 seconds. All boosted allies will recover 50 stamina and torpidity per second and have their movement speed increased by 50%, which even works on flyers. Damage is also doubled for full male poison. The female has the ability to cloak itself and most nearby allied creatures. When mate boosted, they do not possess an oxygen stat and have an exceptional swimming speed, making them great ocean exploration mounts. And if that wasn't enough, the rider can also wield their weapons when mounted, with a passenger on the back doing the same. All of these abilities combined make the Shadow Main the perfect boss fighter in almost any arena. And finally, the Uteranus was a dino I wasn't even going to add to this list, as it is used as more of a support dino rather than a battle mount. So what better way to end the video? They are almost always present in large scale battles and boss fights, but this is due to their support utility. They can, however, also be used offensively, boasting 2 raw abilities, one being the Fear Roar, which when used will reduce any affected target's attack damage and damage resistance by 50%, and will also cause medium and small creatures to flee if 100% affected. This is where it becomes a great battle mount for me. If you do have a bred Uteranus pumped in health and melee, it can breeze through the hard snow cave on the island, due to it being able to scare out the buried Pelobias. Adding to this, all creatures in this cave are affected by the roar, allowing the UT to steamroll this cave. Of course, you can't just roar everything at once willy-nilly, as it may bite you in the butt, as the creatures will come back to attack you if not killed quick enough. Of course, you do need to get it past the entrance with a cryopod, but it has full access to the cave after that. But it is my favorite mount to run this cave with, and it's the one I feel safest riding. Moving on to its most popular roar, which is the Courage Roar. When used, will give affected allied creatures 25% extra melee damage and 20% damage resistance, which is the main reason of why they are known as the best support dino in the game. And that is going to be the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.